All right, we're all good to go. We make sure all this is going live and everything, and then we can go ahead and talk about this race. A lot of things to talk about today. I'm very excited for this one here. Let me move all this crap off the screen so I can put this up in a minute. All right. So let's go here. As been the norm for the last couple weeks at this point, I'll be here for around 15 20 minutes. More so previewing the race than the paywall show will be talking more about live construction and what the field is going to do. However, with that said, quite a lot of things I want to talk about today, since we are coming off of a immediate track this past weekend at Texas, and while Texas is not really viable in a lot of the ways that I use data, obviously, like when I'm looking at recent form and stuff, it's really really difficult to use Texas each year just due to the amount of crashes that we do have. There are yet again, if you notice, I have all the tracks that I use under my intermediate listing here. Some people might agree with Pocono, some people might not, whatever the case may be, and Dover, and so on and so forth. And this is just the running, recent form. Obviously, we're missing Dover and stuff from last year because I'm only really looking at the last like 8 races and stuff to see where people are at recent form. What I want to do is go over Texas and look specifically at what not even what happened at Texas, but the people that still showed speed, especially when we're at a track or when we're looking at Texas at a place where everybody agreed it was very difficult to pass. Okay, everybody could visibly see that and stuff like that. If you want to use any of the tools that we are using in this part of the video, you can join us under any of these packages. Reminder is that really the main difference in the prices here is the version of SaberSim that you have. Um, because with everything else, you do get all the TrueDFS prescriptions and the Painter analytic, intuitive analytics projections that you see here for NBA, NHL, MLB, basically 3 sites in one. The price is pretty much just dictated by what version of SaberSim you are using. If you want just the NASCAR stuff, it is $40. You might be asking why is it so expensive and so on and so forth, but it's mainly due to all the tools that we have here. And I was talking to a guy the other day, and unironically, or not, that's not even the proper way of using that. Surprisingly, he brought up the fact that our main competition with how we're showing data is actually probably racing reference with how well everything is put together. So when we're looking at Texas really fast here, um, and what I want to discuss here is obviously, we'll show if it went into overtime, so on and so forth here. But when we're looking at the race results here, and we look at where everybody came in through the field, okay? And what I'm specifically looking at is this example here or what we're focusing on here is the starting position at Texas, okay? This is gonna go back to the recent form, and then we will kind of wrap around it and talk about today's grid and the drivers that we are looking at here. But I want to use Texas specifically since it's not, or I'm viewing Texas here mainly because it's not on my recent form. And yes, we had crashes and stuff like that. But when we're looking at the faster cars up top, actually being able to get through the field and basically, regardless if we had enough restarts or not, still being able to drive through the field was very impressive by Legato, Chastain, and Blaney. Now, if you used, my stuff yesterday, we played all these guys. That's not the point of this conversation here. What I'm looking specifically is how people were able to get up through the field relative to Texas. We'll use Reddick for an example here, first and foremost, just to get an idea of where everything is in terms of all the yellows that happened here. So this is an indication. Yet again, this is fast laps under green. This is what you want to see from people you're expecting to see or have fast cars. Okay, when we're looking at people who have been able to show speed recently, we're using Reddick here for an example. Okay, this is where he's been in my stuff at these tracks. Yet again, this is not the finishing position. This is not driver rating. This is just how I sort guys here. Obviously, starting first. Okay, we're not talking Larson really much at all today, mainly because it's kind of obvious you play Larson. We'll kind of talk about what a realistic projection for him is going to be. But really, past that, we're trying to focus on where other plays are coming from, and so on and so forth. And so Reddick is the based on the grid position. I understand you might view Bell as that, but in my stuff, we've seen a pretty big decrease in speed this year. I mean, at this point, we have enough intermediate tracks, Vegas, Homestead, uh, my bad, Homestead, Darlington, Las Vegas, and obviously coming off of Texas to indicate to me that we really don't need to discuss or talk about Bell too much. So when we're looking at Reddick and where he was running in this race, obviously this is what we mainly want to see when we're looking at a race like this. Of was somebody able to pass people? Was somebody able to not only pass people? Obviously, he started 17th, and technically off this restart started 14th. Is he able to pass people? One. Two, is he able to scrape off fast laps? That means, especially when it's coming from like the eighth and ninth position here, that means not only is the leader not getting the fast laps, nobody else really behind the leader up until him has the fastest car, and so on and so forth. So when we're seeing an individual who's able to drive through the field and pass people during a green flag run at a track that is really, really difficult to pass at, that's usually a really, really good sign that somebody has speed. And yet again, we're just kind of going over the stuff that I would use to justify explaining why I think Reddick is probably a guy that we want to focus on. When we're looking at the fantasy score, now this is the last uh, thing that we wanted to talk about, or thing that I wanted to add. And I mentioned it yesterday really fast. I just want to show how it works. So, like Reddick, for example, obviously he was fifth. We're looking at lap 252. So, what you could do here, now that this is working, is you can actually type in the lap. You can type in any lap, and it'll give you the DraftKings and FanDuel score that driver had at the time. So, obviously, it'll show you the leader at the selected lap, so on and so forth. The uh, selected laps, and so on and so forth and stuff, and the amount of obviously with the or not with the but the amount of fast laps and laps led that each individual driver had at that exact moment. So this is right before Reddick wrecks, obviously in third. We're looking at your main guys up front. Obviously, Logano, Larson, Stenhouse, Chastain, Blaney. These guys end up finishing the race up front. But if you're reviewing a race, or say you maybe missed a race, or whatever the case you want to see, uh, this is another tool you could use to see just where people were scoring at the exact time to see if people were doing well or not. Secondly, the main reason why I do my own stuff, and what is probably more beneficial in these paywall shows, is like the Chase Elliott yesterday or last week. Like, I did not understand why Elliott was like stone chalk in like everything. I don't understand why it was like the second or third highest known driver. But anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is yet again to show the tools and stuff here. But I'm going to look at we look at Blaney, we look at Ross, we look at Priest, we want to look at Brad. This is just last week and stuff here. Obviously, quite a bit on the screen here, but what I'm going to do here, or what we're specifically, hold on a minute. All right, sorry about that. When we're looking at these drivers here, obviously, Chastain starts 31st, Blaney starts 24th, Reddick 17th, Kozlowski 30th, Priest is 32nd. So actually, we don't. I guess for this conversation, we don't necessarily need to look at the top guys here. Chastain is in 26 this week. So when we're looking at and I'm not using this because Texas has a great amount of data to use, because obviously we have all these fucking crashes and shit, and we just tear a ton of shit up. But yet again, when we're trying to understand what good chalk is, what bad chalk is, what a good projection is for somebody and stuff like that, we basically have very similar situations between these three individual drivers as we did last week. Okay, obviously, if Brad Keselowski back here, you have Priest back here. We'll look at Barry, although I don't think Barry started anywhere near the back last week, so probably not a good. Yeah, he started ninth, so not really usable in this situation here. I guess we can do Kyle Busch as well. but I don't remember where he started. Okay, he also started at the back of the field. Okay, so when we're looking at these 4 drivers here last week, this is how they went through the race, obviously. Okay. What is being shown here? Okay. What is being shown here at Texas, and what is also being shown here when we're looking at recent form of these individual drivers here. This is where Keselowski is typically at. This is where Barry is typically at. Okay. This is where Priest is typically at in terms of speed. Okay. Does that mean he finishes there? No. It's just saying where these guys are at in terms of speed. This is where Chastain is at. Okay. So before we even like look at like projections or whatever, we can clearly see like 4 individuals back here who more than likely are going to gain anywhere from 10 to 12 to 15 place differential points. Okay. Yet again, walking you through how projections are made, walking you through, and more so, explaining at least what goes into my stuff, what goes into why people should be owed, why people should be owed, whatever the case may be and stuff. Um, so like these individual drivers here, same, like they're probably good plays. Okay. This is another race where it just so happens to be now, typically in intermediates, we have much more, we've qualified uh aligned much more of where people should be at. For whatever reason, recently we've just had guys really messing up in their Q laps and qualifying poorly. Yet again, like these 4 individual drivers again. Same thing with Bowman as well. Bowman is substantially starting farther back than the car that he's had recently. We look at Texas last week, and why am I looking at Texas here? Although I don't have it on the board here, because yet again, I need a lot of green flag laps to justify the recent form that I use. This is too many yellows and too many things factoring into um, what is it? Too many things outside of green flag speed factored into the stuff. But this is how I would use Texas data. I wouldn't use it any more than that. Just a visualization of how people are able to kind of go up through the field during green flag runs, specifically for the guys in the back of the field. So I kind of already skimmed by Larson, right? Like everybody's expecting to play Larson. Talking about Reddick, mainly the last guy that I want to talk about in this free thing is obviously Blaney. I've been crazy over Blaney this really this year just because he hasn't been owned nearly as much as he should have been. Um, Typically, when you're playing NASCAR DFS or really any sport, okay, you want to find leverage on the field. Okay, typically that is trying to play the fastest guy in a race or a series before the rest of the field starts doing that. Okay, Ryan Blaney has been the fastest, most consistent guy that we've seen. Um, so today would indicate, you know, hey, we probably want to play the guys in the back of the field who are showing speed. Yet again, we haven't even looked at practice laps. Okay, because no, yet again, I mean, I look at them, I'm aware, yet again, we had a ton of, people blowing, left rear tires, uh, yesterday. We had, Priest, SVG, tons of people, have tire issues and stuff here. I can't factor that into to a projection. I can't factor that in. I can't believe I just dropped my phone like a big silly goober. I can't factor that in. That's just gonna happen. God's gonna take the wheel on who blows a tire or whatever. Um, I like looking specifically at all the laps at once versus breaking them down into where people are at in 15, 5, 20 lap runs, mainly because especially in situations like this where we get yellows, a lot of the times the driver is going down pit lane. They're not going to put on new tires, okay? But due to how people look at 15 5 lap runs and stuff, once you enter the pit lane, like your run's done and stuff like that. So nearly all these laps are on the same tires outside of people who blew tires, right? And stuff here. And then it's just justified by who wanted to run long or who decided to stay out or whatever the case may be, right? Um, What I'm specifically looking at here is pretty much where people like Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson is at this point. Now, this is the main telling thing. Now, yet again, Larson did get into the wall, but I mean, when you compare his speed to literally anybody else in the field, you know, I mean, we're deep into a run. They gotta get he calls it short at lap 23, but we're at 174s here. Okay, rest of the field, we do have some stragglers at 124. Hey, his teammate, William Byron. Hey, his teammate, Alex Bowman. Um, Kyle Busch, who, fucked up at Q, right? Starting dead last. Hey, probably showed good speed here. But you look at where the other main contenders to lead laps are. Bell's at 171s. We see Reddick's now he is at 174s as well, but he's at 172s here. Um, so I mean, like, I don't know. I've over the years I've put less and less time or stake into actual practice time and focusing more on this type of stuff here. I don't see any questions or anything in this stream here. I will be transitioning over to the paywall show we're talking about. We'll at least talk about specific builds that are going to be used, understanding where ownership is going to be, understanding where we could possibly make a change. I think today is going to be a lot of 1v1s, really determining what happens with the field, whether it be, whether you're playing Larson and Blaney, Larson and Reddick, Larson and Byron, or 1v1s in the back of the field for who you use for value or whatever the case may be. I think that's more so what the slate is going to come down to. If you want to join me in that, you can find the link in the Discord momentarily. Past that, I think that's mainly it for the free show. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you for being here.